talking about some deep stuff. You're taking salespeople from 12, an entire dealership from 12, average of 12 cars sold to 20 or 22, a manager to 42 when his goal was 30. It's obviously not an accident, and it's not motivation. We
No,
can't a lot of people motivate. And it sounds like there's some psychology in here, and that's an area I know very little about. Okay, so obviously with the time, your business is psychology. Tell me where the psychology fits in. I know you're giving me the roadmap right now, but tell me in layman's terms how it ties together and what psychology and sales, how they mesh.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. So first of all, what I believe, and I'm convinced of it, is that what a customer feels and what a customer is thinking during your sales process is vastly more important than the actual steps themselves. So a lot of training is on road to the sale, fundamental steps. Here's the meet and greet, fact finding, select the vehicle. I mean, like most of us know the steps of the sale. And I think that is critical. That's important. It's good foundational stuff. But here's the problem or challenge with that is that you take a salesperson, you give them a step like go greet a customer or here, go investigate, fact find, whatever. The customer's psychology, how they think and feel, is more important than the step or the word track. And let me give you an illustration, I think, that proves that point. I want you to imagine for a moment, Billy, that you're back on the lot and you are selling cars. And you have an option. There are two buses that are going to pull up this month. And one bus has 20 people in it who are going to buy a car, and they're all first-time ups. First-time guests, never met you before, strangers. You got another bus over here that's got 20 people that are all going to buy a car, and they're repeat customers. They've all bought from you before. Now, you get to choose which bus you're going to sell. Which bus would you choose?
Bus 2.
Doesn't take you much long. I mean, you don't have to think about it, do you?
No.
Now, let's talk psychology. Why is bus 2 obviously the choice? What's the psychology of your choice? Why did you pick bus 2?
Well, they know me. They know the process. They trust me, and I have a much higher. I'm gonna sell them a car.
Yeah. Well, in both cases, you would sell the car. I said you're going to sell a car either way. So that's not a factor. So you could either way, you sell 20 of these people or 20 of these. Mm-hmm. If I ask you to unpack why this bus, you're going to say things like it's going to be a quicker sale. Mm-hmm. It's going to be an easier sale. It's probably going to be a funner sale. It's probably going to be a more profitable sale. All of those benefits are why you ultimately picked this group. If there was no real benefit to you, it would be like, I don't care. But the reason why this is the obvious choice is the benefit to you personally is it's going to be easier to sell them, quicker to sell them, funner to sell them, more profitable to sell them. Because in both cases, you would still sell the either bus. Now, here's why, though. Let's go the psychology. Why is it easier, funner, quicker, and more profitable? And it's one of the things you mentioned, which is this bus fundamentally trusts and likes you, and this bus doesn't yet. So what we're saying is this: the way a customer feels and what they think about you changes everything about the process that you're about to go through. See, in both cases, Billy, you still have to greet the customer. In both cases, you would have to understand what they're trying to do. In both cases, you'd have to select the right vehicle with them. You'd have to build value in it. You'd have to create mental ownership. You'd have to help clear the path of any objectives or obstacles. You'd have to gain agreement. The road to the sale for each bus would be fundamentally the same, but the experience would be completely transformatively different. Why? What they think and feel. So the psychology of your customer matters vastly more than the step or the word track. So what I want to help salespeople understand is when you're selling, when you're going through the process, what you want to do is learn to sell through empathy. Empathy is the ability to see the world through another person's eyes as though it's true. It's to see the sale through the customer's perspective. Most of our processes, word tracks, and training, and this is not a dig against anybody in general, this is just an observation I have. Most training is very customer combative. It's mostly about control. It's mostly about how do we convince? How do we overcome? How do we get the customer to follow us? And so the training of a lot of trainers out there is salesperson centric, sales process centric. And then it's basically how do we kind of tug the customer along with us? My approach, the psychology approach, is customer centric. So it starts from the perspective of the buyer. And when you start from the buyer's perspective and think from their perspective, you get a lot less resistance, because who's going to resist you if you're thinking about what they're thinking about? And so I'm going to give you a kind of a little one-liner that I use when I'm teaching. And this helps illustrate the point of psychology. If you, the customer, like the way that I think, if you hear me talking and you and I greet and I start talking and you like the way I think, if I think the way that you think, if I think the way you think, you're going to like the way that I think. And if you like the way that I think, you're going to start to like me. And if you like me, you're going to likely want to buy from me. So if you go backwards in that process, the secret is to think the way the customer thinks. And this is the foundation, by the way, of what rapport is on a scientific level. When you do rapport building strategically and scientifically, what you're doing is you're establishing a point of agreement or a point of connection with your buyer. And so when you do that, like if you hear me saying something right now, anybody in the audience, anybody who's watching this live or on the recording, if you're saying, man, I like the way this guy thinks, what you're really saying is I'm saying things that you believe are true. Mm-hmm. Right? That's really what's happening. What's happening is you're hearing me say something and you're going, I believe that. And so what you're really liking is not what I'm saying. You're liking the fact that I'm saying what you believe. Right. You're actually an egomaniac as an individual, and you love the fact that I'm saying what you already believe is true. And you're like, I'm a genius. And now listen to this guy. This guy's a genius. And freaking, I love geniuses like me because there's so few of us in the world. And so what's happening on rapport is that when customers feel that they're meeting someone who is similar to them or understands them, their guard comes down, because we're never afraid of the known. We're only afraid of the unknown. And that's why through psychology, what creates such dramatic results is I'm teaching salespeople how to get out of the way. I'm teaching them how to be customer centric. And from the beginning, from the greeting on, how do you sell from the customer perspective? And that's what creates raving fan advocates.